A weak growth outlook for the economy means businesses will have to work extra hard to improve its bottom line. While the Jcci hosted a special breakfast seminar recently looking towards Asia and China for growth opportunities.
Well, it's interesting, China with almost 1.5 billion people, India almost similar, Indonesia more than 200 million, Vietnam 100 million. And, if you look at overall ASEAN or China, India, you're looking at a very large population. So indeed, about 55% of world population. Not only that, these economies are large economies, Japan, China, Korea, India, Indonesia. Meanwhile, there are smaller economies, all with significant population, that are growing fast, growing very rapidly. So that creates one big collective marketplace that is the single largest environment to do business in the world currently and for many, many years, for decades, potentially for centuries to come. So we in South Africa, I think, need to take more note of Asia. I think over the last 10, 20 years we've done more business, but we still have a long way to go. The awareness in boardrooms around the country is just not there yet. Perhaps you've had a few champion brands or businesses in South Africa that have made it big in Asia. But even SMEs and large, private businesses, your second tier, South African corporates are not as active as they can be. These countries in Asia are industrializing. You're seeing urbanization. So you have industrial markets and you have household markets, consumer markets that are growing very, very fast. And that could be at the bottom of the pyramid for lower income segments, also the mass market, middle class market, as well as mass affluent and affluent markets and high net worth individuals, for your luxury options. So I think overall we need to look at the region, Asia. We need to be strategic. We need to mine information well, and it's not just about resources and raw materials, such as mined products or energy products or fishery or timber. It's also about manufacturing. It's also about services. And that is what we want to talk to people about here in South Africa over 2018.
Great to have you with us. Thank you so much for your time and thank you for hosting us at that very interesting discussion that took place. It certainly is insightful, especially for someone that's looking to the markets of Asia and China. But why is it so important for the Jcci to have these ongoing discussions?
Well, it's for South Africa and for business in South Africa very important to have contact with the overseas markets and the international markets. So last year we had delegations going to Dubai via the Hong Kong Forum, Taiwan, China. So yes, it is necessary for us to have contact with the international market and to network. And you've seen this morning at the Jcci with the Chinese delegation there, how they want to invest in South Africa and that they want to import from South Africa towards China. So that makes a huge difference. Usually in the past few years we've imported from China and now they are interested to import from South Africa. So, and we know what good business there is in for South Africa to do the exports and to up that industry. And yeah, it's good for the country. And it was good for the delegations that attended to know that, listen, and they spoke to us afterwards and say, wow, what happened here this morning? We thought we're only importing from China. And now they want to have dairy products or mining products or this or that. That's good for business in South Africa.
Sure, China is one of our big trade partners. They remain a big trade partner of South Africa. And as it was pointed out in that discussion, nearly half of the world's population is living in Asia, which is very interesting. But I wonder what focus you're giving to inter-African trade, because the narrative has been around that for quite some time, improving inter-African trade.
Well, I've said it this morning, and I promulgate this to say that if we have successful neighbours, we will have a successful South Africa. So we had a delegation from Namibia about 3 weeks ago. We went to Zimbabwe last year. We've got contact with the Mozambique business people, and we believe that if we can do good business with them, and like I said this morning, it's not only for the Jcci membership,
Sure.
Obviously, it will help our members to have these contacts with overseas markets, but I'm quite prepared to refer them to Zim as well. And they've mentioned this morning that tobacco industry is quite an important sector that they are interested in. And I've seen the guys from the tobacco industry in Zim last year, and I will refer them, and I will take the delegation there, because if Zimbabwe can make money with their tobacco, you know, it will help them as well. And like I said, you know, to stimulate their business will be good for South Africa as well. If we look at the interaction, if we look at Zimbabwe, where they stand at this stage, everybody's looking at them and say, listen, they've got a second chance now as well.
Yeah.
It's a system with business. It's
Sure.
pumped capital into Zimbabwe, and that will be good for South Africa as well. And we do the same up in Africa. We had a delegation that went to, and I was one of that, Djibouti last year in December. Very, very good business was done and created. And you know, that is the northeastern part of Africa. And we had a look at the whole Silk Route, how products used to come into in Africa. How does the new Suez Canal affect ports in Africa, in South Africa, in Southern Africa? And we had a look at the whole of Africa and say that, listen, we must meet more often, the chambers. Chambers of Uganda is quite proactive, so the Sudanese as well. And we've agreed that we will have 2 or 3 such ventures this year to do business in Africa and to make sure that the chambers work together to create business and the contacts and to do the networking in Africa. Because that's our continent.
Sure,
That's where we must invest.
Sure, so there is strong appetite coming through from
Definitely.
local businesses to
Definitely
improve
so.
trade, because statistically speaking, we trade more with the rest of the world than we do with our neighbors in Africa.
I was representing the JCCI in Dubai last year in July, and that was the whole African continent that got together there. That was arranged by the Hong Kong guys. And on the same context, you know, let's do business with the Arabs as the African continent.
We're hearing some amazing stories about your export incubator program, and I had a chance to look at some of the amazing products. There's a lot of talent in terms of what is being displayed at that incubator office, but how rigorous is this program? And what is the attrition rate? How many of those businesses actually make it to trade successfully, internationally or within the continent?
Well, that's our role as a chamber, and we're so proud of that incubator. And all of them that is participating at this stage started with us 3-4 years ago. Program is only supposed to run for 3 years, but some of them asked us to extend that, which we did. And all of them doing the wines, or Molly doing juice, is so successful. The guys doing the shoes, they've shown you this morning, I think the shoes was out there. Wonderful business, and we support them. And that's one thing from the JCCI, being one of the oldest and the biggest chambers in the country, with the infrastructure that we have and the support that we had from GIZ, the Germans, who paid for a lot of that, as well as Standard Bank, as partners in this. And that's job creation, and looking at partnerships and make sure that they're successful.
We need jobs.
We need jobs.
And speaking about jobs, the youth is a big concern, because they don't have skills, they're still developing themselves. And some of the youth I spoke to at the event told me they were forced to get involved in business to produce something, because they have to earn a living. Tell us about your focus on the youth.
Well, I can tell you one of our member companies is the Red Ants, and they've got a subdivision, the Red Farms, and I'm quite involved with that project as well, because it's close to my heart. We're in Eikenhof, 18 kilometers out of the CBD of Johannesburg, on a huge farm, and we've got the training academy there. And we are looking for funding now as well. We get funding via the CETAs. We're looking for funding from the Taiwanese, from the Arabs, from the Chinese, because we've got learnerships at this stage for 200 students that we've taken off the street. And the requirement from the CETA was that they must be unemployed youth, black youth, more ladies than gents, between the ages of 18 and 23. And we got the funding, and we must thank the Services CETA for that. But the project is now that via the JCCI, that we get more funding from the international businesses to make this bigger and even more successful. So that is just one example of a company like the Red Ants with the Red Farms, and you must come and see that. It is amazing on how we train the youth and upskill them.
I'm sure sponsorship is always an issue to get things going, but what about the business concerns coming through from business owners? How do you serve as the voice of those concerns?
Well, you know, there was the political environment. People are uneasy to talk about that. There were a lot of concerns last year. Business say, but you know, should we invest further? Must we wait? What is going to happen with the country? Is there hope? And it's a role of the JCCI to say, listen, but we do play a role. We're a apolitical body.
Sure.
We're not funded by government. We get our money from the membership, but we do have inroads into local government and to assist businesses in that way. Because that's why they joined the JCCI, to get something.
Sure.
And how can you assist them? You know, if a company, and I said that this morning, I'm not going to mention the company's name, but the executive chairman stood up and said, listen, but how can we further assist him specifically and his company with the politicians and government to have greater access into China? And we said, listen, with our connections with the Department of Trade and Industry and with DIRCO, very, very good relationships, and I must thank those two departments for this, that we can get together and say, but this business want to do business in China, but here's a red tape or here's a problem, please let's discuss this, or there's a SARS problem, let's get involved and assist. And that's what we do from our side.
Sure.
We had a large delegation from Iran last year, November. It's a very good example. We had about 200 companies who attended and said that, listen, we want from the mining industry, petrochemical industry, agri side, we want to do business in Iran. And the ambassador from Iran was here, and very, very good discussions. And the one thing that came up was because of the sanctions, it's difficult to do business with Iran. But they want to do business with us.
Yeah.
So now the JCCI must come in and say, listen, but there's now a stick in the wheel here.
Yeah.
You can do business, but how are you going to get paid? Because companies are still scared of the sanctions. Money cannot flow directly. Now we must get the Reserve Bank involved, the politicians involved, and say, listen, but guys, we can do a lot of business with Iran. Let's do it above board. Let's make sure that the money is not siphoned into terrorist organizations, but let's do good business, clear the money, and get it paid via the Reserve Bank or the banking system. But that is something that we'll have to look at. That's typical role of the JCCI, to bring these two countries together with the businesses and the politicians, and then say, listen, let's sort out the problems.
Find a
For
way
the
forward.
good of the country,
Sure.
and for the good of our business people
Sure.
and
Well,
our members.
you brought up the political environment, so let's bring it back home. Recently, Cyril Ramaphosa was appointed as the new ANC president. The markets reacted very positively to that news. What is the business sector hoping for under this new leadership?
We brought out a press release just after the results came out, and I'm glad to say that we support Cyril 100% and the government, insofar as we believe that, and he's promulgating that the things that's troubling business is corruption and fraud. How are we going to deal with that? And business, and that's what our members tell us, if we can sort out those problems, and if they can get to trust the government again, they will participate, and they will make sure that, listen, we can go far in looking at the social responsibilities and BEE and as long as they know that corruption will not be there.
Sure.
And that's what Cyril said. Corruption is one thing he will not tolerate. And I think if we look at the past 2-3 weeks on what is happening with companies with the Escoms, what is happening with,
Sure.
with the CEOs, and things that took now 2-3 years as a process, and we didn't get anywhere, and all of a sudden it feels as if everything comes to an end, and that we'll get answers of what is happening out there. That is a positive spin off to business. And that, I think from the JCCI side and our members, we are so positive that we can turn this around. We celebrate this year Madiba, and just to have the rainbow country again, and to say we're all in this together. Color is not a problem. We're way past that. If you're black or white or green or pink, it's no longer a problem. We just want to do good business for the greater South Africa.
That makes sense.
It does.
Yes.
And everybody bought into that way back. But because of the problems and the stagnation and the corruption, people got despondent. People say, listen, but let's hold back. You know, we don't trust government. The trust must come back.